Hello good people, I'm Andrei, and in this Photoshop lesson I will show you how I made this double exposure effect in Photoshop. I used just 3 images and this is the final result in Photoshop. Then I just made a few more edits to affect the contrast, but this was the original image and this is the final effect. So grab the images from the resources folder and let's get started. So let me show you my layers palette. You can see it's quite simple. I just have 3 images, the portrait, an image of a tree, and then this other photo that I used to add this flying birds here. And the rest are just a few adjustment layers to achieve this effect. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do before you take your pictures, if you want to make it, if you want to reproduce this effect using your own images, is to have a portrait with a white background. It's not necessary to have a DSLR camera. You can even take the photos with a smartphone or pocket camera. It doesn't. You don't even need a flash. Just to show you, I have these images that I took. These are some portraits that I took of myself in front of a white wall, but you can see the white balance is kind of it's off. Okay, you can see it's underexposed because when you shoot against the white wall, you should overexpose a bit. But anyways, I'll give you the image with the corrections made. This is the image that I used, and I made some adjustments to it. You can see this was the original, and then I corrected the white balance and increased a bit the exposure. So this is the image that you will find inside the resources folder, and this is the image that we will use. So I'll go to edit in Photoshop CS6, and this is our image. Let's wait for it to be open. I will use the sRGB color space. Okay, so this is the image that we will start with. You can see that even this part of the image is not completely white, and we need it to be completely white. Otherwise, we will see parts of the image that we will put on top. We will see it over this white background. Let me explain. Let me close this. How this works. We will not use layer masks to get this effect. We will use the white areas of both images to kind of mask themselves out. And we will use a blend mode for that. It's important that the other image that you use sometimes I've seen images of cities, skyscrapers, plants, whatever. I use this tree, which you will find inside the resources folder, this one. So it's important that the second image that you use is also against a white background. Okay, you can also take images of a cityscape and try to overexpose the sky if you want to do that. Okay, for my image I used this picture from Deposit Photos. Okay, so let's get started. And as I said, this is not exactly how I want it to be, so the first thing I want to do is unlock this. I'll press and hold the Alt key and double click on the layer to convert it into a normal layer, and I'll add a curves adjustment. Okay, and I'll give you the values that I have for this. I just added one single point, and the values are 184, and then for the output is 250. Okay, you can see it's too bright, and in order to get rid of I just want to make the background white, not myself. So what I will do is use this layer mask. So first I'll select the layer, choose quick selection tool, let's increase the brush size a bit, and just select myself like that. You don't even have to refine the edge, because for this particular effect, having an exact match of the edges is not really that necessary. Okay, just try to match the biggest features while to select most of them, and that's pretty much it. You can even use the magic wand tool. Okay, so I will now re-enable the curves, and I'll fill this selection with black, because I don't want to have myself black. I just want to have the background a bit brighter. Well, actually I want it to be completely white. If you sample here, you can see it's pure white. Okay, Great, now I have the background ready, it's fixed. Now I'll add another curves adjustment, and I'll leave this for later on. I will adjust the brightness of both the background, well, but actually only of the portrait itself. You can also use this layer mask like that and invert it if you want to feel safer, so to say, okay? And that way you make sure that you only affect the portrait itself. But as I said, we will leave this for a bit later on when we add that tree there. Next, I will add a black and white adjustment. You can also leave the color version, but usually in black and white, I think it looks more interesting. After we're done, we will deactivate this so you can see how it looks when we have it with color. And I'll give you the values that I have here: 73, 96, 40, 60, 20, and 80. I just changed the reds and yellows because for portraits, these are the colors that usually affect the skin tones. Okay, now we have our portrait and background ready. It's time to add our tree and get our double exposure effect. I will go to my resources folder and I will open this tree. You'll also have the portrait inside of this folder, okay? Let's assign it this color space, and this is my tree, Control A, Control C, and Control W. And I'll paste it here with Control V. Now you can see it covers my whole portrait here. And in order to get this double exposure effect, we need to use the screen blend mode. But it's important that both photos have white background, otherwise it will not work. Okay, so let's switch this to screen. I've seen people using the lighten mode as well, but it's too flat for my taste. You can see it. I don't know. You can combine this blend modes if you want to, but I think I like more the screen blend mode. Okay, now you can see that the dark tones of my portrait, for example, the hair, is where the image of the tree is visible. But other parts, like you can see the ear, where we have a lot of bright tones, the tree is barely visible. So you can see, for example, here on the tattoo, you can see it's dark, and you can see the tree is very visible there. But here, where we have no ink from the tattoo, it's not that visible. So and also here the bright background of this tree layer is where my portrait is not visible. Okay, so that's why we get this strange effect. But we have a small problem here. You can see the trunk of the tree is too narrow, and I don't really like that effect. And on top of that, I want this roots to be visible here on my chest. But if I do this, you can see the head is not, it doesn't have that effect. And on top of that, my face here, my eyes are, we have this gap here. What I want is to have these roots here, and I want to have this effect on the head. I want to have this parts of the tree, okay? So what I will do is I will use a smart object, and I will duplicate this tree, but let me show you how I will do it. First, I want to make it a bit smaller, because I want these branches to be visible something like this, maybe. Yeah, something like that. We'll see if I want to rotate it. I can do that afterwards. First, let's make it just slightly smaller. And now I will convert this into a smart object. And then let's wait for it to be open. Actually, let's convert it into a smart object before we make it smaller. Convert the smart object, and now I will open this. By double clicking on it, it will open in a new document. And now I will duplicate this tree with Control Command J, but I'll use the normal blend mode on both layers. Okay, and what I want to do now is I want to make this a bit thicker. So what I will do is make it smaller a bit, not too much, and double click on the layer to open the layer styles. And now I will change the blend if options, because this background is completely white. If I shift this where it says this layer, if I shift this to the left, you can see the white background completely disappears. Okay, and in order to have a softer transition, I will press and hold the Alt key and then click here and drag it, and you can see this control splits. And I'll put it about here, and then on the underlaying layer I will do this here on the shadows, something like that, also pressing the Alt key. And now I can move this around, and what I want to do is rotate this like that. See that? Okay. That way I fill this gap with more tree branches, and I also make this part here a bit thicker. I want to flip it horizontally like so. Probably make it slightly smaller and have something like this. Not that small. One thing I want to do is make it wider, so I'll press Control Command Alt and Command C to open the canvas size options. I'll increase the width to, let's say, 6,000 pixels and the height to 8,000 pixels. And I'll create a new layer under everything, and I'll fill it with white. Okay, and that's just because I want to have more white area here to cover my entire portrait. And now I'll save this, file, save, and let's wait for it to be saved. Okay, now it's saved. I will close this document, and you can see that now this smart object has been updated. Okay, now I can switch this back to screen, and now I can move this around, and you can see how now I can cover more of my portrait. I'll press Control Command T because I want to change the size of it, and now you can see that I can cover more part of my portrait. I have these tree branches here, and I want to have these roots, as I said, covering most of my chest and my shoulder area. Okay, and you can see it looks pretty nice. Let me just make it slightly bigger, and that's pretty much how I like it. Okay, you can see I have this effect here on the head, and we're covering parts of my portrait, but make sure you don't have gaps, like for example, well, depends on what you like, but if you want to have it like that, I want to have my eyes at least, have them visible, and parts of my mouth or my nose. Okay, so this is totally up to your own taste. Okay, I will leave it like that, and let me deactivate the black and white so you can see how it looks in color. Okay, so this is how it looks with the color. You can also activate the black and white and then drop the opacity a bit so you reduce a bit of some of that saturation. Okay, let's rename this to tree, and let's rename this to portrait. Okay, now let's move on. We're almost done. One other thing that I did is I added a levels adjustment layer on top of everything, and just to change a bit the contrast of the overall image, and I have here on the midtones 0.80, and I have the highlights to 225. You can see it now. I'll have more contrast, and the curves that I've been talking about here, the curves too, I have 2 points here. Okay, first here it's 58 and output 58, and then a second point with input 159 and output 179. Okay, just to make the portrait slightly brighter on the midtones highlights. Okay, these values will not work the same for every photo, so just make changes and see what you get. Okay, next I have a gradient map. Okay, and the reason why I added this gradient map is because I wanted to change a bit the background. I didn't like it, it's too white. Okay, and I used the photographic toning, and I think I used the gold blue, yeah, but reversed. And that way here on the whites I will delete the whites. That way I have this yellow tone. Okay, so click OK, and then the opacity that I used is 40%, or well 30. Let's try 30. Okay, and you can see it looks a bit more interesting now. And then the last touch, well, let me just slightly move this. Okay, I didn't like how this was looking here on my on my lips there. Okay, and now the final touch is another photo that I used of some birds, but well, you can use, I will not give you this image because I just googled it and I know that's not good. You're not allowed to do that. But just to show you what you could do, let me show the normal image. This was the image, okay? And I used the hard light blend mode. I created the this layer mask and decreased the blend mode to the opacity to just 70%, sorry. Let's delete this and fill it again. Okay, so this is the image. Move it across your portrait to have whatever effect you want to have, and then I can use this layer mask to just paint out the effect where I don't need it. Okay, see that? Maybe 70% was too little. Okay, and that's the image that I wanted to have here on, well, over my portrait here. Okay, so this is the effect. What I did next is I just made a few touch-ups to make it look a bit different, but I did that in Lightroom, and well, I know many of you don't have Lightroom, so I'll try to do it here in Photoshop. The first thing that I would do is crop the image. Depending on, I use this image as a lock screen on my cell phone, but you can use it as a screenshot, well, as a wallpaper if you want to. So I'll crop it like that for now, for this tutorial. And what I will do is add let's try some curves just to make this slightly darker, especially here on the low mid tones, on the dark highlights. And then let's try some split tone effects like so, maybe some red. As for the shadows, I pretty much like it like that. And then I added some grain as well, but here in Photoshop the noise effect does not look really that good. First, let's make this a little smaller. The height just 2000 pixels. And let's see what we can do about the grain. What I will do is merge everything onto a new layer by pressing Shift, Alt, Command, and E. Okay, or you can also go to Select All and then Edit, Copy, Merged, and then Edit, Paste. You will get the same result. And let's try adding some noise. But you can see it's not active, so I have to change the blend mode, the image mode to 8 bits because it was on 16 bits. It was a raw file. A raw image. Okay, now I have it on 8 bits. I'll go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and I don't know, add a 2%, 4%, something like that. Gaussian, it's too much, 2%. In Lightroom, we have a filter that's called Grain. Let me show you. Well, this is the image that I would have from Photoshop, and here I would go down here when you see grain. See that? Grain. Let's crop it to have it similar as in Photoshop. Like that. And done. And here we have an option that says grain. It kind of looks nice with it. That's too much grain. Size like so, and see the before and after, maybe slightly, yeah, like that. See the before and after. It looks nicer to me. Maybe that's too much. Okay, and then some sharpening, and maybe, well, the split toning does not look nice from here, so I would not use it from here. I would make all the color changes here in Photoshop. Okay, if you want, you can use another gradient map to add a more of a reddish tone, like so. And let's try some blend mode, soft light. I don't like how it looks. Let's leave it to normal and just 5% or something like that. Okay, what it does look nice in Lightroom is the vignetting effect. Also here on the lens correction, well, sorry, on the effects, post crop vignetting, decrease that like so, some midpoint, and increase the highlights a bit, not too much. And there you have it. So, well, this is the effect that I wanted to show you. I hope you enjoyed it. And that's all for now. See you on the next tutorial.